Hey guys, it's me Robin from RsIslandCrafts. Today I'm bringing you another one of my untutorials. What I consider an untutorial is I show you how I do something. It may not be an official tutorial the exact way you do something, but I find it works well for me. And in case anyone else learns or does things similar to what I do, I thought I'd just show you what I do. Today we are going to learn how to weave in ends on a knit project. This is my heirloom baby blanket. It's a free pattern from Lion Brand Yarns, I believe. I'll put a link down below for you. I made this with, there was 2 cairn cakes. I used one, and it's probably about a quarter of the second one. It didn't need too much from the second one. I believe it took me to about here before I had to start with the second one. A cairn cakes is an acrylic yarn. It is 80% acrylic and 20% wool. I haven't tried to block this yet, but with that little bit of wool, it should make blocking an acrylic a little bit easier. The color for this one is 17001 or Cookies and Cream. The supplies you're going to need, put this out of the way, is you're going to need your project with ends that need to be woven in, a pair of sharp scissors. When I'm weaving in ends, I prefer to use smaller scissors because if you use a large pair of scissors like this, you could accidentally snip your yarn into your project. If you do snip your project, you will cry and probably swear. So we're going to stick with little scissors. This is a pair of stainless steel scissors that my husband used to do construction, and it's the type of job where you get injured a lot. He needed stitches quite often, so whenever we went to the emergency room, they would pull out a new packet and there'd be scissors with them to cut the sutures. But they threw the scissors away. They weren't, even though they're stainless steel and can be sterilized, they just threw them away. So I just took the pair. They fit perfectly in a craft bag, so that's what I use. And I use my Altoids tin with a magnet on top for my needles. Today, since we're doing worsted weight yarn, I'm going to use a big needle. It has a large eye, which will be good for getting the yarn to go through. You can use any type of needle that you want that'll work for your project and your yarn size. This just happens to be, you'll be able to see the needle well, and this will work well for us. They also have one with a bent, a little bit of a curved tip to it, and that's good for getting under a stitch. The one with the curved little hook of the tip allows you to get under a stitch nicely, but you can only use it for the larger yarns because if you use it for like a sock weight, it's just too big. Okay, so this is the front side of my project. We're going to do the weaving in. With a blanket, there's really, there is a right and wrong side, but when you grab a blanket, you're going to see both sides, unlike a sweater where you'll only see the outside. But anyways, we're going to do this from the back. See if we got a nice light color over here. All right, so where I joined in the 2 skeins, you'll see this. There is a tail at the beginning. I already wove in the tail at the end. This, sometimes as you're knitting, you will have, there will be a knot. I always cut the yarn. I never leave the knot in, and then I choose to just weave in the threads, the yarns later. So this gives us plenty of options. When I have the two yarns like this, what they tell you to never put a knot in knit fabric because it'll eventually work its way through, or it'll come undone and you'll see the knot. This is on the edge of the project. It's a baby blanket. It's not a cashmere sweater. I feel better that it'll be more secure if I go ahead and put a knot in here. When you're putting a knot in, you want to tighten up your stitches so that it looks like a normal stitch and it's not a big gap like this. But you don't want to pull it so tight that you've bunched it up. So it just takes a little finesse. Just a little gentle pull on one, little gentle pull on the other, little crosswise pull. You see how that one will fit in nicely. So what we're going to do is just your basic square knot. You could stop with just one overhand knot if you were concerned about, you know, a knot's appearance. Okay. I like to go ahead, I trim the ends ahead of time to make sure that they're not too fluffy, because as I've been working the project, the ends will tend to get a little fluffy. So these have been pre-trimmed, but I left them long because you never know how far you want to weave it into the project, and I like to leave a tail on it even after it's woven in, so when you wash it and block it and such, it has room to stretch and work its way into the project to where it needs to be. So to thread a needle, this one with the big eye, you could just squeeze it and push it through. But if you were using a smaller eyed needle, you put the needle between the two, you give it a pull and squish this right here. And then you take your eye and your needle, you just wiggle it down, loosen up just a little, and it goes right through. There's no licking, there's no frustration. I usually get it in the first or second try. It's a little harder if you're using like sewing thread or embroidery floss, but a worsted weight yarn is real simple. Now what you're going to do on the back, this section we have stockinette stitch and we have garter stitch. So we're going to weave. These are both going to get woven into the stockinette stitch. So I'll show you that one first. And on the other side we have some garter stitch. So make sure you're not going to lose your tail. And when you're looking, you're going to see get a hold on this. You're going to see that there's a bunch of little upside down U's and right side up U's. That's what makes your stitch. You can think of them as smiley faces and frowny faces, or you can do upside down U, downside U, whatever works for you. You want to try to weave in the color with the color yarn that it is. So this is more of the natural or pale white color. So I'm going to try to weave it into this little strip here. What I do, it's hard to make sure you guys can see. I take it along this edge just a little bit because it's a little thicker when you're working through the border. You want to try to stay on the back of your project, so mostly you're going to be going through one loop. If you go through two, your yarn could show on the front. When we're done, you'll see that it mostly blends in, but sometimes it could pop out a little bit. So I just work my way down until I get to a row that I can do my weaving. Okay, so right here we have a frown and a smile and a frown. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mimic the stitches that are already there. I'm going to take my yarn, my needle, and I'm going to follow this stitch, follow the frown, and go into the smile. Let's try that one again. I think I needed to be up just a little bit more. get me over here. There we go. The edge stitches are always going to be a little bit different than when you're working to the center, so it's not an exact science. You just find what's going to work for you. See, now that I'm actually coming out of the same hole that this frown is, I can follow that frown, go down to where I can see the next stitch, which was right here. And you can see that I'm now in a smiley. So I can go through this smiley. I have the option of going to this one right here, or I can go diagonally to this one. When you're doing it, you'll feel, this feels very strained to me. I feel like I'm at a weird angle and it's forcing it. So what I'll do is I'll take it and go this way into this frown, and this one feels more natural. And then you follow that frown down. You see how we're getting into the yarn over the fancy little holes there, the lace work. So we're not going to want our thread to go through there. So we're going to have to duck it down a little bit. I'll pick up this one and this one. And then I'll even go into this gray down here. Now if you pull this too tight, you're going to make this section all bunch up, and you don't want it to be bunched up. You want it to lay natural. So if you find yourself getting too stressed and pulling on it too tight, just take it and give it a little bit of a gentle stretch out that way, and it'll loosen it up a little bit. So now I'm going to follow this gray stitch, and I'm going to sneak down to here because I want to kind of stay out of that opening. And I'll pick up a couple stitches, and I'll work my way back up until I get back into this creamy color. Now if you look closely at this, you're going to notice that there's a little bit of cream in with the gray. But in the overall scheme of things, it really blends in nicely, especially here. If you were doing a black on a white or a white on a black, vice versa, it'd be a big contrast. But on this one, we're going to be okay. So then I'm going to follow my frown and go back down diagonally into that smiley stitch right there. Pull it through, follow that smiley back up to this frown stitch right here, only grabbing the top loop. Now you can keep going, or you can consider this is 1, 2, 2.5, 3 inches, because we have the nice grid here. We can see that we're about 3 inches into weaving the ends in. Now most people will tell you just go ahead and snip it right there and you're fine. But what I like to do is I like to weave it backwards on itself, and then I like to splice some of the yarn when I'm doing that. I feel that when you wash it, the fibers that are here that you splice through, these fibers will grab a hold of that thread a lot better and hold it tight, especially with an acrylic because it has all these barbs on it. So it'll hook onto it and hold it tight. With that little bit of wool that's in there, it should do a really good job of holding it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to backtrack a little bit, but I can't go back through the hole I just came out. I have to skip over that a little. And what I'm going to do is thread it through itself. So like I said, when we wash it, it's going to grab that fiber. So here's where we came out. So I'm going to skip over and go through here. And this right here, this piece right here, is what we went through, what we brought over. So I'm going to splice that one. It's a little bit harder when you're not using a sharp needle, but you don't want it to be poking through while you're trying to weave it. So sometimes it's nicer just to have a not so sharp needle. And then I'll just take that down a little bit. And here's the other one we did. So I'll pull that through there. And that's it. I'll leave this long until I go ahead and wash it. And then after it's washed, whatever sticks out, I'll trim it close. I'll wash it, and I'll do a little bit of this to make sure it's in as far as it's going to be, because you know kids are going to play with this. And then afterwards, I'll trim it about 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch. I mean, if you want to go straight to the fabric, that's fine. Just be careful you don't cut your project. And as you can see, we know where it was, but after we trim this, even me who knit this and knows where it is, I would have to actually look to find it. As you can see, right here is where we went under that gray, but it's still not that noticeable. So let's look at a garter section. Let's look at this point. This is cast on, cast off edge. Looks like the cast off edge, I don't know. Whichever, doesn't matter. But this is all garter, so we're gonna go ahead and show you how to get to a section, because this only starts out with a couple stitches and you increase on each edge until you get bigger. So I'll show you how you can work your way to a bigger section to weave it in. Once again, we can squeeze this yarn because we have the big needle, the big-eyed needle. Just push it through, or fold it over, pull down, squeeze it tight, take the eye of the needle, wiggle it through. Nice and easy. This one, let's get a nice close-up. What I do on the ends like this is I look to see how it's naturally just wanting to go this way. So instead of pulling it this way and trying to weave it in to get it to a nice section, and you'll notice that it's forced, I'm just going to go ahead and let it go this way. So I'm going to take just a 1 loop along the edge, pull it through there, pull it through this next loop stitch, and then one more. And that will get us to a nicer section so that we can work our little magic. Take my yarn through, bring it up to a section where we can easily see that we have a happy stitch right here. Okay, so we follow this happy stitch, we go through there, take it up diagonally to the next sad stitch. So you're not going to go happy, happy, sad, sad. You want to go happy, sad, or however it works. Sad, happy, sad, happy. Follow the curve of that stitch down. Since that's a sad, we need to go to a happy. Now we could go back this way, which would be okay, but it feels forced and all tight on me. Normally, I'd say, you can honestly go either way. We can go this way, but we're only going to have a few stitches and have to go down another row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what it looks like when we go this way. It's not that big of a deal. It just makes it a little bit more cumbersome feeling. There's our smile. Now we need to go to a sad, so there's a sad. See, now the situation here is we end up coming back up through this same stitch that we just went down. There's the sad, and there's the happy. And once again, we're doubling up. So now we have the original stitch that went through there, and now we've gone through it twice, which is why I normally like to go more of a diagonal than the back on it. But since we're in such a small area here, the acrylic yarn and the worsted weight's already squishy. I can slightly feel that it's there, but once again, once it's washed, it's not going to matter. And a baby is going to drag this all over, or it's going to be in the car, or a dog's going to lay on it, whoever uses it for whatever reason. It's not going to be that noticeable. So I follow my sad. Now I need to get to a happy. That's where I'm at. I got a sad. Oh, I got a happy. See, I'm upside down. follow my happy, come back diagonally to the one we were already in. Nice gentle pull, follow the sad, and come back to that stitch again. Now since we're going back and forth, the yarn's going to grab onto each other, so we're able to just do it in this one small space, where normally we'd want to go a lot further across. Happy, back up diagonally, follow the sad, and come back down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and split my yarn. I'm going to grab the bottom one, going to grab this one we went through, grab the next one, come back up. I'm just going to keep splitting that yarn. Give it a little tug so that it's nice and firm but not too tight. There you go. You can see where we went back up through to fasten the yarn through the stitches to secure it, but even that area is only noticeable because we were looking at it. They say 3 foot away going riding on the back of a horse. If you can't notice it, then it's no big deal. And there's that. Let's go ahead and try another one. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them down in the comments, and I will pull out another project if I need to clarify something. So once again, we are on the side here, so we need to tighten these stitches up. See how loose they are and big they are? When I'm knitting, I take these and I just put it in a loose knot like this, so I don't have to worry about those stitches coming undone. And I make sure I leave the yarn long enough. But I leave it the tail long enough so that I don't have to worry about it coming undone. Now this section will be a little loose, but it's okay. The way I just tied it, it just comes right undone. So tighten these up a little, pulling them opposite. Sometimes you just got to give it a little tug. And we'll tie our knot. Left over right. Right over left. With a nice tug in there. Nice little knot. This is the front, but when we start weaving it in, it'll pull it to the back. So let's go ahead and weave in through the garter again. Hold it tight. Slide the eye over. We're in. Or fold it over the needle, pull it tight, slide the eye over, easy peasy. Now, do you remember what we're going to do first? Yep, we're going to weave in just a little bit down on this edge to make it lay nice and flat and give us a nice spot in this color that we can work with. Okay. Took our way up the edge a little bit. Now do you remember what we do next? Exactly. Now we can start looking for our smileys and our frowns. Let's see, the first one we got here, we want to come up and out the same hole that the stitch is. So right here, we have ourselves a little frown. So we're going to follow that frown down. I keep looking. Yeah, no, I got it right. You follow that frown. This is a smiley. We follow the frown through the smiley, and we want to go down diagonally through a frown to the next smiley. Follow that stitch, and this stitch right here is happy, so we need to find our sad. And there's our sad stitch right there. So you could see where this stitch comes up through this one and down back through that one. So we're going to follow that back down. There we go. Take this one up. We got a smiley. So we are looking for a frown. Going a little bit diagonal. Follow the frown down. Miss Mocha. She's been trying to get up here since I started. She has to be the center of the show. Here she comes. Excuse me, ma'am. Do you have any input to put with this video? Do you have some intelligence that you're forgetting to share with me? She's my little helper. Hi, pretty girl. All right. You go stay in your spot. And it's just as easy as that. When I first started to learn how to knit, I was taking it and I was just going through like this and wondering why. One, you can see my stitch on the yarn on the other side, the stitch on the other side. And two, the ends always came unwoven. But then I learned the secret that you just follow these through. It's like duplicate stitch. You just follow them around. And then when you get through 5 to 8 stitches, 2 to 3 inches, you just go ahead and backtrack a little. Work your way through something you've previously done, either with the weaving in the ends or with a stitch you've already made. And just bring it up through there once. I like to do twice because I like to have extra protection. And then just bring it through. And you're done. See, now like I said, if you snip this off right here and you started washing and blocking and it needed some extra, this would start coming out. And then instead of having it over 6 or 8 stitches, you might only have it over 3 or 4. But if you leave it long like this, it'll take up any slack that it needs and you still have all this extra, and then you're good to go. So that is how I weave in the ends on my knit projects. If you're interested in knitting this pattern, I will put the link down below. It's a free Ravelry pattern. That's the strangest name to say. Or if you like this specific blanket, look for it in my art fire shop. I will be posting it up once I get the ends woven in and I have everything washed and blocked and ready to go. Any questions, let me know. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Have a great day. Happy knitting.